my gosh. I just looked like an actual clown. I'm paying to be a clown. And
Audio Jungle.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Experts About Nothing.
put a little twang in
I
it.
had to because there's no excuse for us not filming 2 weeks straight.
Other than beautiful life, darlings.
Honestly, we've had this episode outline ready for a while. We just haven't had a moment to film. These weeks have been just a little bit nuts, but we're back today and we're excited to talk to you about something very pertinent to our day-to-day life with this side hustle of ours.
True that. So today we wanted to talk about the unglamorous truth of starting something new, which is honestly a really spicy title, and very excited for this episode.
Priya came up with that, and I was like, absolutely, let's do it.
Yeah, it felt like, like one of those docuseries like titles.
Yeah,
like
where it's like, let me tell you what the real is behind all of this.
Anyway, yeah, we wanted to talk about kind of the initial highs and then the real reality of starting something new and specifically exploring a new passion and kind of that journey and the real investment of time and energy that it takes out of like your day-to-day life.
And boy, do we have thoughts on that. But before we get into that, please give us a follow on any platform that you guys listen to if you're enjoying the show so far. And also, if you guys have any episode suggestions, please send them our way. We also have a great lineup of guests that we're thinking about for the future and are excited to bring you guys more and more content. Also follow us on our Instagram and our TikTok. Both at Experts About Nothing for more of our fun faces doing ridiculous things. Yeah.
True that. We will guarantee raw and real content always.
That's a promise.
That's the expert's promise. I don't know if we can promise much else, but raw and real is what you will get. All right, let's kick it off. So, very obviously, this topic came about while we were thinking about the podcast. Obviously, we've had a slight lull in being able to like generate content and balancing doing the podcast and really putting our time and effort into it with our lives, our actual 9-to-5 jobs, friend obligations, family obligations, taking care of ourselves. Like there's a lot of things that we're constantly balancing, and it naturally led us to think about where does exploring your passions and potentially having like a side hustle fit into that lineup.
Yeah, and when we first started the podcast, there was so much excitement behind it. I personally felt different because we finally had a true creative outlet and something to put that creative energy into, whereas before it was kind of just like consuming content, which is so fun. Still do that plenty. Some would say all the time. But once you kind of take a pause on that and then switch into the creator role, the entire idea of starting something, there's so many emotions that go through it. One, of course, is like deep excitement, but then there's also the fear of how it's going to be received. There's also the fear of, can I actually do this? Do I have anything important?
Are people going to care?
For people to care, for people to hold on to? Do I have anything different to say that's not already been said? Or at least can I say it differently? And I think a lot of my personal insecurities when first going into this was, am I eloquent enough to speak on a variety of topics? Do I even have enough life experience to talk about some of these things? / does anyone care? That initial doubt was temporarily squashed when we talked about our why behind starting a podcast and like what exactly we wanted to contribute to the podcast space that we haven't seen for ourselves while we're consumers of that content. And I think finding that why was one of the biggest reasons why we were able to, first of all, give us enough courage and motivation to actually start. Because, I mean, me and Priya have been talking about the podcast for what, 2 years, 3 years? Like, we started talking about it in maybe late 2020, early 2021. And the first time we even tried recording, it was like bust. Like it was just like, I think we didn't have a full vision of like what we wanted it to be necessarily. Yeah. I felt like what was different this time was we just knew who we wanted to target and like why we were even trying to do this. But I think that was one of the biggest things that helped us get over the hump of, can I do this?
Yeah,
and the
just
fears.
starting.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, agreed. Also, before you start something, you're still in the dream phase. Like, your dream hasn't become reality yet.
Yeah.
The reality of the actual hard work you're going to have to put in, the plan you're going to have to put in, the actual unglamorous parts of starting something hasn't set in yet. And so, of course, there was fear and we were worried about judgment. And so, like, figuring out what our goal for this podcast was a huge thing. But then also just, like, all the untapped opportunities that you have in your mind. You're like, oh, maybe this could be something really amazing.
Yeah, maybe this could lead to this and this could lead to this. And we can, like, really build a community out of this.
Yeah, exactly. And you're kind of, like, in that dream world. And I know even up until releasing our first episode and after releasing our first episode, I was still in that dream world. Everything felt so new and exciting and fun. And so I was like, whoa, like, it's scary, but it was really fun. We put it out there. We got so many amazing reactions from people we knew, like friends and family. And so, you're kind of going off of like this adrenaline energy where
there's such a high.
It's such a high, and you are starting to execute on something you've thought about for a while, and it's really exciting, but then no one kind of warns you about the lull after that, where it's like, okay, the like novelty of all of this has worn off a little bit.
Yeah.
And now the amount of work that you're going to have to put in and maybe like not getting all of the validation as consistently is going to set in. That's where I guess like your drive comes into play. Like, it's harder to be consistent, obviously, when people aren't like hyping you up every second of the day.
Yeah.
Diksha and I were talking about this. Something that I've always thought about is like, sometimes it's nicer to have your dreams live in your dreams, especially when it comes to like your passions or things that you think you might be good at or things you might be interested in, because in your dream world anything's possible, and maybe it'll always be that thing that you could have been really good at. But when you actually try it, there's a chance you might not be good at it, and there's a chance you might fail, and now you're actually putting pen to paper and you're actually testing things out. Failure is a part of everything, every aspect of life, and that includes your passions and your side hustles. And I mean, it's what you deem as failure, but like basically like not everything's gonna be a rainbow road to success, and it's gonna take a lot of time, a lot of effort. You might face a lot of rejection, and it kind of pops that bubble that you're in when you're in your head. So I feel like that, at least for me, has been kind of like a stopping factor a lot of my life for even trying new things, because it's like, oh, like this could have been so great, but if I try, there's a chance I'm gonna fail, so I don't even want to take that risk because I don't want to face that disappointment, basically.
Yeah, and on the other hand, there's also this excitement when you actually do start, where it's like, whoa, where can this go? How far, how long will it take until I actually see what I've been like working towards? I feel like sometimes we have an amazing episode, one that we're super proud of, and then we don't necessarily like get the validation that like we really hope that it would get or whatever. But then there's also some episodes where we're like, not quite sure how that's gonna be received next, and then we like put it out there, but shockingly like people end up really do liking it and enjoying it. A lot of it is just throwing a lot out there.
Yeah.
Something that actually Prashant has always said, even though he is not a creative yet, he was always like, just keep building your library of content, just so that if any one piece of your content strikes someone, then they have 49 other pieces of content to listen to, and they're not going to be like, oh, one and done. You know how like sometimes you might listen to a podcast and it was great, and then you don't hear from them ever again? That's definitely happened to me, where like I see a YouTuber and then I see their last video was 2 years ago. But it's like building up that arsenal of material. Not everything has to be a hit. Something that we also learned in the process of the lull and like the initial wind up was to not be striving for perfection every single aspect. There's a couple different things that I personally learned. One, not being so hypercritical of how you sound and the way you say it. Because I personally have always been insecure, a little bit insecure at least, about how my voice sounds, if I sound too annoying, if I sound too like ditzy, whatever that is. I can't say I'm fully over it either. That's why like I love editing, because I'm like, great, I have the power to craft this and like present the podcast episode the way I want to. But I remember like in the beginning, we had a conversation where we were like, listen, you cannot be editing this deeply because you were listening to the same thing 15 times and we're only 20 seconds in. Over time, it's becoming more comfortable with your voice. And also just the reasoning behind you putting your content out there. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I think once you have your actual vision of where you want something to go in the future, building the content in the moment becomes less taxing. When we think of our more meaningful ideas, I think we genuinely are more passionate about it, but I think it's also about giving us the space to like find those ideas instead of being like, this is what other people are talking about, let's just talk about the same stuff. Let's just force it.
Yeah. Honestly, that's been a refreshing take of, like, this year. I think last year we were very much focused on, like, okay, we need to make an episode every single week.
Yes.
Like, what topics can we grasp at? And sometimes things are not going to come to you, like, immediately. And they're not going to come to you as naturally. I feel like we're giving ourselves the room to develop ideas more naturally. We also feel more secure in our own thoughts and our own voices. I think we, like, are figuring out what we can both individually and together bring to the podcast. Yeah. And so that kind of morphs itself. And I think all of this is just more and more evidence of taking the time to like hone your craft, and not saying our craft is honed. Like we're clearly.
Absolutely not. Clearly. We have still not figured out a microphone.
No. They're, we're still on the cusp, if you will. But the fact that we are able to try to be as consistent as possible and we're evolving and adapting on like our own terms, I don't know, that in itself is kind of motivation to me that we can keep growing this the way that we want to. Also around the idea of like pursuing something outside of what you have to do, quote unquote, you need to enjoy it. That is like been the really like the biggest lesson learned. And you need to give yourself grace for when maybe you don't. Especially when like, something's not bringing you immediate profit or like immediate gain. You're gonna burn out if you don't actually like what you're doing on like some fundamental level. Yeah. And I think being real when maybe you don't like something and like not forcing yourself to do it. Yeah. And also being real when you're like, okay, I'm not gonna love 100% of this. Even with the podcast, we're not gonna enjoy every single minute that we're putting into the podcast. Like a lot of this is hard work. I know I personally don't love the editing aspect of it, or, you know, sometimes we're tired. We don't want to like record things.
We don't have the energy. We don't feel like our best, happiest selves to like, be able to record. And it's like, why force it and give less than 100 to people that are listening to you out of choice, you know? Right. I don't know. It's really interesting when you're starting something new, specifically in the social media space, where the validation predominantly comes from viewers, people that interact with your content, likes, like comments. So it's a really tough thing to separate that external validation from the internal satisfaction that you want to feel. And it's like, how do I feel satisfied without relying on 300 listens on the podcast? How do I convince myself that this is worth it without that yet? And I think part of it is just reminding yourself that it's not that yet. The yet part is like so crucial and like something that I think about constantly. I'm just kind of like, one day one of these will pop off and it's going to be a great day, you know? For now, I'm just going to enjoy the process of like putting something together that I'm proud of. Something else that I've learned is also like to not sacrifice quality, but to just do quality in a smarter way. We used to record the podcast 3 times. The first 4 or 5 episodes, we would do literally multiple records to get the best record. That was just not, I think that was just mainly for us and to like calm our nerves. But now we record it once and we deal in the editing phase. Yeah. And we like figure out how to make this something that like actually brings value to people. Ultimately, we always try to put out a quality product instead of doing a rushed, let's try to put something out every week, even if it's like irrelevant. And I think our content has kind of evolved in that way too, where it's like, how can we make this more beneficial and useful and interesting to people? Not just the traditional stuff, not just about you and I's life evolving to what's true to you. Mm-hmm. Even initially, we would try to force things, like forcing conversation about ourselves. But then are we like, do people even care? You know? Like,
yeah. It also, like, we don't have to morph ourselves to be someone else. Like, I think initially it's a lot of, like, oh, what's out there? And, like, how can we fit into this space? Because there's so many podcasts out there. There's so many YouTubers, influencers, whatever. And, like, you feel like you have to kind of be these people in order to find success. And obviously we haven't found, like, external success. But what I feel the most natural doing and what I feel the most authentic doing is, like, when ideas come to us and conversations feel really natural, we find guests that really fit in with our ethos as a podcast, and we're able to, like, have super genuine conversations about them. Of course, there's other types of conversations and creators that are in the similar space, but I do feel like the uniqueness of what we can provide is our voice. Like, that's what makes us different in this space, and that's what makes us maybe, like, interesting to listen to for other people. And along the lines of, like, needing external validation to feel some internal success, I think that's definitely true, and that's natural, and, like, is going to account for surges of happiness when we find like, oh, we got good views on this or good feedback on that. Another part of it is just being aware that that's only one aspect of why we're doing this. And I think that is what really drives me to, like, continue doing the podcast or any other, like, side hustle or passion that I'm exploring. It's for me. As much as it is for, like, us to have a voice and us to have this platform, this is also for me to have a creative outlet and for me to explore my voice and learn more about myself and learn more from other people, from you and from our guests. And, like, I want to be having these conversations for myself. Of course, I would love it if people listen to it, and that's going to be even better. But, like, just having the thought of, like, I'm happy to be having this conversation and happy to be doing this work, even if no one does. That is a harder thing to be fully okay with, obviously. But I think at some level, some part of me is kind of content with that, where I'm like, you know what? I would love for this to pop off, and I would love for us to have a community built around this podcast. But I'm honestly also learning so much through this process that I feel pretty content and proud of what we're doing. And I think the fact that, you know, both of us have talked so much about, like, imposter syndrome on the podcast and our own insecurities and, like, being women minorities and viewing a lot of timid behaviors in our lives. This is in itself a victory to me that we're able to be at a stage in our lives that we want to have conversations, broadcast them to people, and are willing to be imperfect on, like, a large stage and, like, share that with people. I think that's a feat. I don't know if we even give ourselves the credit for that all the time, and comparison is constant in day-to-day life. But regardless, whatever you're working on in your life or, like, whatever you're trying to explore, I think taking a moment of reflection to just be like, wait, I'm here, I'm putting in energy for myself to grow and to explore things that I've always dreamt of and always wanted to do. Even exploring those dreams and passions in any capacity, regardless of whatever external success, I think that takes a lot of energy, and that is ultimately going to come back to you in a positive way, regardless of, like, what that positive way is. Like, I think I just truly fundamentally believe that the external benefit that you're getting from this will come back to you at the end, because I think we're doing this out of pure intent and joy.
No,
fundamentally.
Definitely. Something that we truly lucked out with is having each other to do it with. I think about it and I'm like, could I have done this alone? I feel like it's really a blessing to have someone else to go on the journey with you, to help you kind of ride out and talk through the defeating feelings that might come up. I feel like talking to you inspires me to think differently about some things, and, like, you bring up points that I'm like, oh, that's a great point. Like, I never thought about it like that. And I feel like this is almost like truly a sharing platform. We're talking dumb shit all day, but we could talk about really serious things as well. And I think this is a great area and safe space almost for both of us to talk through some of our deeper thoughts and, like, struggles that we're going with, as well as the highs. But I think talking through everything with someone else and having a partner in it makes it 10x easier, 10x more beautiful.
True that, sister. Like, yeah, I learned so much from you every single pod. I mean, obviously, the reason we started the pod is because we have deep conversations and stupid conversations like 24/7. So we were like, might as well share some of these. We never had like a structured way to like think through some of these topics that we do now. It's almost like the exercise of even like outlining these ideas. I feel like I think about things in a completely different way. Because I'm like, oh, I actually have to think through, why do I feel this type of way?
Yes.
Or like, why do you feel this type of way? And like, it truly is kind of like a learning exercise. And that's how I feel sometimes when I listen to a really good podcast.
Me too.
So,
it feels like a therapy session.
Yeah, because you're like dissecting your own thoughts. And I think that's one of my favorite reasons why I love this form of media, because it's like, I feel like you're able to like think while you're listening to people. And it's not as overstimulating as watching something.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, definitely. This type of content generally just gives me the feeling that I get after I talk to a friend I haven't in a long time. We have a really fulfilling, deep conversation. That's the vision that we've had for the podcast and like what we want to bring to it. And the number one compliment that hits us deep to our core at all times is like, I feel like I'm just talking to some of my friends on the couch. Mm-hmm. That is the simplest but like most meaningful compliment, because we don't want to feel like we're preaching to you guys as if we know anything, and like it's truly the journey that we want to capitalize on, and like all the emotions that come with any journey, whether that's like corporate and at work or in life or in relationships or whatever it is. Talking about it generally has had such a profound impact in how I communicate my thoughts in life right now, but also how I resolve conflict in myself, you know? Mm-hmm. And like, this is a little off topic, obviously, but yeah, I just have to say that.
No, I mean, I think that's all. I mean, all of this is to say that thinking through why you want to do something can really be a motivator on actually executing and doing it.
And sticking with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And like, we're so used to, at least in this day and age, monetary benefits or verbal benefits, or I don't know, like everything is for some like material thing that you're getting. And that's the only incentive to be doing things a lot of the time. And so, yeah, like Deeksha was saying in the beginning, sometimes it's 9 p.m. and we had a long days at work and we're like, oh, we have to do podcast stuff. It's like, why are we doing this? Or like, what is this for? And then you think through, like, what is your why? What do you actually want to get from this? And even just starting it when you don't want to, like, I did not want to do this 20 minutes ago, and now I'm in an invigorated conversation having a great time. So it's like the 10-minute rule, like just do something for 10 minutes, and if you don't want to do it anymore, then stop.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, I feel like after 10 minutes, you're probably going to just keep doing it. Yeah.
I feel like that even when we're making an outline and we're like struggling to like come up with something, but then when it hits, we're like rolling, you know? We touched on the fact that a lot of this is just because we want to do it and we have a passion for it, and like we find other benefits in it that don't include external validation. But something that can't go unsaid is the actual opinions of others that might hurt you. This is a very small scale, but when you're making TikToks and stuff for fun, or when you're making podcasts and stuff for fun, it's like you don't experience negative feedback. And me and Priya are very lucky in that we don't really experience that too much, and we haven't yet, right? Mm-hmm. But something that does linger in my mind sometimes is like, what do people think about us doing it? Mm-hmm. And how do we overcome the what do people think about us in my personal day-to-day? And I'm like, of course I have my own opinions and times when I'm overly critical of content that I consume. But then I think about it and I'm like, wait, maybe people are saying that about me. That would be sad if they were. But then I'm like, wait, at least we have the balls, the time, and the energy to actually put something out there that we are proud of and spend time perfecting our craft, like you said, and like perfecting the skill set that it takes to actually do something like this. I've learned so many skills out of this. The first one that comes to my head, obviously editing, but also social media. How exactly do we utilize different social medias for a specific purpose. How does SEO work? Like, I feel like all of these things are like really useful concepts. I would have never known if we like didn't pick up this hobby. We learned so much about how to be more thick-skinned, like without even kind of realizing. First, we were shy about our podcast. We wouldn't be like, oh, we have a podcast. Like, we wouldn't be like screaming, and we still don't. But it's like, I am much more comfortable now speaking up and like explaining to people our why than I was when I first started. And I was like, oh yeah, it's just a little podcast. Like, we do it for fun. Instead, now I have a more powerful answer than I did before because I am growing confidence in myself and in the actual product, you know?
Right. Yeah. And that takes time. I feel like that's the biggest lesson learned is you feel more confident by getting more comfortable. At least I know I do. Another thing we were talking about is that success across the board always will lead back to hard work. I know there are like some discrepancies to that rule of thumb and like there's privilege that pays into it or luck or whatever. But I think at the end of the day, hard work plays a really big part of it. And it is kind of like the great equalizer in some aspects. And so there's something kind of comforting about it almost being scientific where you have to put in those 10 years to be actually amazing at something. You know, in this whole viral mentality and viral world where everyone feels like they're going to get overnight success or that's what you think you see all the time. Yeah, someone could get overnight success, but can you sustain it? Like sustainable success takes hard work and effort, and even some of these viral creators that you see like do have to put in a shit ton of work in addition to it, even if it happened to them by accident.
I feel like their responsibilities like increase over time as they become more successful. It's like their voice matters more. It's like the things they say, the things they do are going to be judged more harshly, and like they have to grow personally as well to like kind of level up to whatever their craft is at a certain point, and the reach that they have, it truly does come with so much responsibility. But it's nice that right now for us, this is like truly a hobby and we can appreciate all the small wins for what they are and have each other to celebrate those every single day. Otherwise, it's hard for you to like take a step back and like appreciate what you have built.
Yeah, agreed. And I think appreciating that climb and that process and just understanding that everything is slow and steady, and it comes back to the lucky girl syndrome and like positive manifestation. But I do think that if you go into things with like good intentions and hard work and just continue kind of grinding away, like good things are going to come your way. And already, whenever we reflect on the pod, we notice so many positive things that we've gained from it that we probably didn't even think were possibilities or like think of as things that we would have learned through this process when we started, right? Yeah. And so taking things outside of like the podcast, I think in general, we've also been trying to like, I don't know. I feel like this happens whenever people hit their mid to late 20s, but you're just like, there has to be something more in this life. You just get your mid-20s midlife crisis and you want creative outlets or just like other ways to feel joy other than
your 9 to 5
working, drinking, and doing superficial shit. I don't know. Life cannot just be Zoom meetings and happy hours and dinners. There's got to be something else, you know? Yeah. And all of those things serve their purpose, and like no shade to a good happy hour or a good dinner. Love both of those things.
People that like the lifestyle and the freedom that it gives you, it's amazing. Like,
it's amazing.
It's phenomenal.
Maybe if your work is your passion, then you wouldn't feel as much of a void in your day-to-day on like, oh, I need to be exploring other things. But I think both of us especially have craved a hobby and like craved trying different activities that we've always wanted to try. And we've touched on this in the podcast before. The point that I've come to realize through this process is it's not always going to be as like fun and games as you think it's going to be when you're starting something new. I know personally I've started improv and comedy writing, which are like two of the things that I have thought about for so long. Literally maybe like since high school. And I remember I was so scared in high school to even like try out for my school play and like do anything to put myself out there, even though I was obsessed with SNL and I was obsessed with all these YouTube comedians and like stand up and all of these little things. Like I just was so terrified to enter that space. And it comes back to what I was saying in the beginning where it's like, when it's in your dream state and you just enjoy this thing for what it is in your mind, it's so fun. But when you think about bringing it into your like actual life, it's so terrifying. And I don't think I was at the point in my life when I was in high school where I was secure enough to like really give myself a shot the way that I wanted to. And part of it does kind of get harder when you're older because you feel like you might have more to lose. Whatever, reputation, like ego, like those things do kind of grow when you grow older. And so I know like I always look at people as they grow older who like explore hobbies with so much admiration and I'm like, that takes a lot out of you to be like, you know what, I'm going to try to learn piano when I'm 40. That's hype. And I do think when you hit the phase where you're like, okay, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to try out these things and see if I like them. And like, what do I really have to lose other than maybe a couple $100 when you're in New York and everything costs $1 million. But other than that, if you can afford it, then like it's really just, I've been looking at some of these things as like investing in myself and like investing in my happiness and my well-rounded life. Part of this is giving yourself that shot and like really trying it out, being honest with whether you like it or not. Part of it is like, this isn't like exactly what I thought it was going to be, but I'm learning so much in a different way. Like, I don't know, just being okay with it working out or not working out. And I feel like it is hard because when you're investing your time and money into something, you want it to work out, obviously. But I think going at it with some grace is what's like helped me a lot through that process.
Absolutely. And I think going back to an episode we had with Lakshmi on her comedy journey, she also said how like she took this class with like no intention of doing comedy after. And then a couple months later, she was like, you know what? I have this piece ready. So like, I'm just going to do it after a date at a random open mic. And like that started one of her biggest hobbies and passions in life right now, which is so amazing. And like the way she like devotes her time and energy to that is no small feat.
No.
Seeing examples of people that are constantly willing to put themselves out there, even if the answer is a no, is very inspiring because you're going to have so many experiences. Some of them are going to be good, some of them are not, but like you have to be able to be the ultimate decider, and you get to be the ultimate decider if you want to continue to do something. So I think taking yourself with a grain of salt, if it doesn't work out, it's not a big deal, you know? But if it does, it could lead to something amazing, and like going in with that hopefulness is a great thing, but also a sense of realness towards yourself. And like, are you actually enjoying this, or are you doing it because people expect you? People say you're the funny one. People say you're this, say you're that, and like you want to capitalize on whatever you're hearing, but it's like, do you enjoy it? Do you find it worth your time? Are you still having a good time even if you're bad at it? I feel like all those things like matter so much, and it's like a personal conversation to have with yourself as you're starting something up.
Yeah. I think being okay with being bad at something is like the greatest skill you can have as a person. And I feel like that is also part of this podcast mentality. Not saying that we're bad at it. Hopefully not. But like thinking that we have to be amazing at something all the time is like so exhausting and is likely going to just stop you from trying it at all. And so being good with just being like, maybe I'm bad at this and maybe I can listen. Like sometimes I do listen to podcasts that we record and I'm like, I could have phrased that better. Or like maybe like I learn things about myself by listening back and I'm like, okay, I need to stop doing this or maybe do this a little bit more, try this out. And like that is the improvement aspect of it. That's something that I've learned so deeply in improv because wow, there's nothing as humbling as being truly just horrible. Like, I don't know. Improv is all about, like, not really.
Spot,
You're just put on the spot. Actually, the whole name of the game is that you should not be preparing for anything.
Yeah.
And so sometimes things feel really natural and great, and sometimes, girl, let me tell you, that level of embarrassment. But it's, like, so crazy because that is, in any normal sense of the word, that's a nightmare to be like on stage in front of people stunned and saying something stupid. But there's something so powerful with just having gone through a bunch of those experiences at this point where I'm like, that was terrible. Like, oh my gosh. I just looked like an actual clown. I'm paying to be a clown. And then you're just like, hey, the world's my oyster. I've already humbled myself.
Could it get worse?
It could not get worse. Like, there's once you kind of feel that level of embarrassment, you're like, that wasn't actually that embarrassing. Like, it's kind of fine.
Yeah.
I think it's freeing in a weird way. I don't know if I would recommend this to everyone, but it was freeing for me.
I love that example. I feel like the more you just try to be true to yourself in like whatever you do, and like you said, not be trying to be something that like someone else already is so powerful. As long as you have that like mindset of I'm going to bring myself to this and not someone else that I think I should be, you'll probably be better, and like you'll probably come off more authentic, and people will probably be able to relate to you. And you'll probably be able to, like, not only make a passion out of it, but probably make friends.
Yeah. And sometimes that's the name of the game. And, like, that's part of the thing, even with the pod, that I'm like, wait, I'm so glad we're able to, like, make friends with some people that we never thought we would make friends with. Yeah. Or, like, develop connections with guests that we get to interview, or people who have podcasts in other spaces, or, like, whatever. It's just kind of like, wow. I'm able to just, like, build a relationship with people that I would not have really come across or, like, gotten the opportunity to have deep conversations with in any other forum. So, Absolutely. That's a dub.
Some of our guests that we've never met before, like Ramya, for example, I feel like we had one of the deepest conversations with her, and it was so inspiring, and I feel so close to her already, even though we've never met her in person. And I think just being able to expose yourself to those types of situations is always really powerful. You never know who you'll meet. Yeah. That you'll have such a deep conversation and connection to. And it's like amazing that we have the opportunity to meet so many cool people across the space, and also in other spaces that like we may have never come across if we didn't have this platform of our own.
Yep. Agreed. So you know what, everyone? Try the thing that you've been wanting to try. And see what the hell happens.
And that's on that. But let's round it out with the question. Okay, what is something that you've been obsessed with researching lately on TikTok?
Okay, well...
Mine is super boring.
So. Well, we're breaking to everyone that I re-downloaded TikTok, so...
It's been months!
I know, but I made this whole rant on the pod about how I deleted TikTok. It's out of my life, and then I got it back. But it's off my phone right now. Okay, you go first, because I'm trying to think.
Okay, so the first, I finally did the hair porosity test. Okay. Because now I am on this major hair kick where I'm trying to do everything for my hair health and just see if I can get my hair in a better shape. So I did the hair porosity test. I'm low porosity hair. And now I've been looking up all these videos about products for low porosity hair that work well. And I'm trying to incorporate that into my hair routine, which I have been doing, I feel like, with the rosemary oil and like all of that. But I think I'm learning so much more than I ever needed to know about hair and how exactly to, you know, work with your hair type. I've always been in denial about my curly hair, so now I'm embracing that and trying to get it looking its best.
Okay, slay. That's exciting. I don't know that much about hair porosity, honestly.
Oh my god, well, I'll teach you.
Yeah, you can teach me. Okay, it's very specific. I've been on, like, a kick of trying to figure out how to do my makeup well.
The makeup hacks.
The makeup hacks, makeup techniques. I'm on makeup TikTok, which is a huge part of...
arena.
That is an arena of TikTok. But very specifically, you guys, and let me know if you have any tips. I'm trying to get the under-eye concealer not to crease. It is like, I've tried so many things, and I've honestly bought way too many products for this, and not a lot of them be working. So, I don't know. Like, I literally have lines under my eyes. I want to be able to put concealer on and not have it fully creased up. Have you tried baking? I've tried baking.
With what powder?
I have the Hourglass translucent setting powder. But then there was this whole hack about how you need to use translucent powder with actual, like, setting powder, like the powder puff thing. Yeah. And do both of those. But then I got the wrong shade of the powder, and it was like
some issues.
Yeah, there's been a lot of issues, and I've tried a bunch of different hacks, and like my under eye concealer keeps creasing. So let me know, especially if you're an Indian girl, what is the hack? Because I'm just been watching so many white people's under eyes, and I don't know if that's what I need.
Are you watching white people's under eyes?
I know, like what specific thing. But there are a couple really cool Indian makeup TikTokers, and I've been following their hacks. And also, I'm trying to get into lip glosses.
Yeah, Priya's on a big lip gloss / liner kick.
Yeah, I'm like trying to wear lip gloss and lip liner. So if you have suggestions, just let me know. I don't know. I'm trying to just stunt. Like, I don't know.
I mean, when are we gonna stunt? If not now. I mean,
I don't know. I've wasted years not stunting.
I know. We stay not stunting.
We stay literally not stunting.
At all, in fact.
We're just sitting our ass down.
In fact, every opportunity we have to stunt, we do the mildest possible stunt.
The literal? I cannot express how mild the stunt is.
It's like me walking out in a matching sweatsuit. I'm stunting today.
Yeah.
I'm stunting
I'm wearing, like, a mildly, like, decent sweatshirt instead of my, like, ratty sweatshirt. And I'm like, I'm stunting, everyone.
Everyone, look what happened.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah, we're working on it. It's a work in progress.
It's a work in prog.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for tuning in. It's been so fun.
Bye.
Catch you guys later.